All right, everybody, welcome to our live unknown name of a show. That's going to change today. We actually have a name that we voted up. We had you vote on it last week, and today changes the day where this will no longer be a nameless show. We wanted our folks, our community, to be able to speak into that name. I actually wanted our 10X Stages team to speak into that name, and today we're going to tell you the name. One of you actually picked what our community voted as the second best name, but it was unanimous for the name of this show. And so that's the way that I want to start it off today. We've got a very special guest today. I believe today one of the most important skill sets that exist in your business, we're going to be addressing today on the show today. So if you're wanting to get more business, if you're wanting to get your team to get behind your vision, if you're wanting to get more leads, more sales, more partnerships, whatever it is that you're looking for, this skill set today is the greatest marketing tool that you have, period. And so we're going to be talking about that today. But before I talk about that, I'm curious if you guys want to guess, our live folks who are listening to this show that's about to be named, if you want to guess what you guys voted as the top show. What you guys voted as the top show. Let me see in the chat. We do this live show every single week. And I'm going to first tell you, you guys voted one of your peers out there as the second place. Dave Burke actually submitted a show name called Unleash Your Message. Unleash Your Message. And that was second place. And so, Dave, I just want to congratulate you. Thank you for naming the show, taking a shot at it. You're going to finish second place. And what we're going to give to you, Dave, is a $5,000 ticket to one of our 10X Stages workshops. A $5,000 ticket to one of our 10X Stages workshops. Over 1,000 people this year have paid at least $5,000 to come to this workshop. And Dave, you are being gifted that. You're going to need to take care of your own travel expenses, but the entire workshop where we focus on helping you build your own stage, build your own webinar, helping you get on other people's stages and building out your signature talk. All of that's covered in 2 days, Dave. So guys, if y'all will drop Dave some love on Twitter Spaces, online, in Zoom, I want to just congratulate Dave for finishing second place. Now, I'm going to tell you what, we brought you what we felt were the 3 best names. And one of our own team members internally came up with this name. And last week it was unanimous, including our guest speaker last week, John Gordon, who dropped so many nuggets last week, including John Gordon, said this was his favorite name. I knew it was the name when my wife said, that's my favorite name of the show. And so some of you nailed it. Some of you got it. The show is going to officially be called Backstage with Pete Vargas III. Backstage. Is that right? Did I say that right, team? Is that the exact wording? Okay. Backstage with Pete Vargas III. And I love that name. Let me tell you why. Because most people don't want to take you backstage. Most people want to talk about things front stage and look so great front stage. But when you actually get them backstage, they're so selfish and they don't want to share the behind the scenes and the insights. And by the way, can I tell you something else? Most people who they are front stage look completely different than they are backstage. They look incredible front stage. How do I know? Because I've seen it. They're one way front stage, but they're completely a different way backstage. A completely different way in their business, with their family, with their partners. And one of the things that I love about Grant Cardone is the fact, and I say this all the time, is some people see him front stage and some people are like, who is this guy? But I've gotten to spend backstage time with him. And the way that he loves his family, the way that he's honoring to his partners and his staff and his team, it's quite frankly pretty phenomenal. And so I'm excited because this is going to be called Backstage with Pete Vargas III. And the only way a guest gets on here is if they're that type of person who lives front stage and backstage together. If you've recommended someone and you don't see them on here, it might be because there is an incongruency with who they are, or in incongruency with what they actually want to share. Because if they don't want to pull back the curtain, listen, there will be nobody on this show that doesn't pull back the curtain. If they don't pull back the curtain, they will not be on this show. Cool? Is that cool? Did John Gordon pull back the curtain for you guys last week? Did John Gordon pull back the curtain for you guys last week? Yes. And if you didn't get the chance to hear that, man, you missed out. And so every week I'm coming to you from vacation. For those of you that are in Zoom with us, you can see I'm in Lake Michigan right now. It's my last day of vacation. 2 out of these 3 shows have been filmed here on vacation, and we've just chosen to make a decision to film this live every single week. And then it will be a show that's reproduced and put in a podcast format with Backstage with Pete Vargas III. And so we're going to take you backstage on how you get on other people's stages, backstage on how do you build your own stages. We're going to take you backstage on the best products and services that you can take into this market. And we're going to take you backstage on making sure you become a world-class communicator. Those are the 4 big categories that we're going to take you backstage on every single week. And we'll focus, probably deep in one area. But last week, John shared things in probably all 4 of those areas. And I'm excited about the golden nuggets that you're going to be getting from this. I'm stoked about this. So we now have a name. I'm curious, you like that name? I want to hear on Twitter Space. If you don't, cool. You guys voted for it. You guys actually got to submit the names and got the chance to actually speak into it. And so no more nameless show. Today, I'm excited. When I cannot be here, which will be seldomly, I will have somebody that is hosting it on my behalf. And I want to make sure I introduce this person because they're not just going to host it today. They're going to teach today. But when I'm on vacation, today's the last day of my vacation. I'm going to hang with the family, hang with the kids. But I wanted to be here live for the first part because tomorrow I'm back at it and back at work and doing that thing. But today, one of the guests that we're having will not only be the host, but they will also be teaching on occasion. And today they're going to be teaching and they're going to be dropping an incredible nugget today. I'm talking deep, deep, deep. Something that every single one of you need on Twitter, on Instagram, everybody that's listening here. And some of you are guessing it, but I was on this vacation that I'm on. My wife and I come back to the same beach town every single summer. We just celebrated 21 years. More in love with her today than I was 21 years ago. I didn't realize that Grant Cardone and Elena Cardone have the same anniversary as Pete and Kim Vargas. We both got married on the 4th of July. They got married 19 years ago. We got married 21 years ago. And both just created incredible things within our family. But one of the things that we do after we're done with this trip is you can see Lake Michigan. If you're on Zoom, you can see Lake Michigan behind me. That's Lake Michigan right there behind me. Actually, right there. That's Lake Michigan. And we take a boat over because we go see my grandmother every year. And we're going over there tomorrow to see my grandmother. She's one of my heroes. And one time, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago in 2015, as we took the boat over, one of my friends called me and said, Pete, I heard you're starting a company. You need to meet somebody. What you are to stages. And by the way, the world's best in helping people understand how to use stages to grow their movement or grow their business. This person is the communication. You're unbelievable, Pete. I was like, cool. Why don't you set us up in a text thread and let's connect? And I said, where does this person live? And they said the person lives in Milwaukee, outside of Milwaukee. It's like, that's crazy. I'm in Wisconsin right now. Maybe they can connect. And so they connected us right away. I get on the phone with this person. And that night, I'm literally meeting him 35 minutes away from my grandmother's house to have a conversation. And we just hit it up. We just hit it off right away. We were there till like midnight talking and dreaming and planning this vision about what could be. And now 8 years later, I'm proud to say not only has he helped me in my communication, he's helped thousands, if not tens of thousands of our customers all across the world understand what it takes to be world-class in communication. This guy is the best in the world. And so outside of just being my host of this show, the weeks that I cannot be here, he will be the one hosting it. Today, he's not hosting it. Today he's teaching, and he'll close us out today. I know he's got an incredible gift that he wants to give the Twitter Spaces for those of you that are here, to online, everywhere that this is being streamed right now. Thousands of people are watching this live every single week, which is really cool. And he wants to make sure and give you some incredible insight to being the world's greatest communicators. You see, when you become a world-class communicator, that's all you need. You don't need anything else. If you can become a world-class communicator, Grant Cardone said if there's one skill set that he wants his daughters to understand, it's how to become a confident communicator. He told his homeschool folks or homeschool teachers, they like, what subject matters to you? He's like, I don't care about the subjects. If my daughters can communicate, they can do anything in this world. I want you to hear that today, everybody. If my daughters can become confident communicators, they can do anything in this world. And so for all of you out there, this is something I want you to continually make an investment of your time and money into. It's something I have been doing because I know what happens when you become a world-class communicator. You don't have to have a bunch of funnels or paid media or spend a bunch of money or a bunch of time, because your words will draw people in to take the action that you want them to take. And so I'm so excited today to bring the one and only, who will be the host, but today he's going to be the teacher, and he will close us out. Guys, would y'all give it up for my good friend, Mr. Pat Quinn? Yeah, PQ.
All right, I am backstage with PV3. I'm backstage with PV3. What a great name, Pete. It sums up everything that you do, and I love the new name.
Is that where you're at right there, Pat? Just right across that lake right there?
I can almost see you. I'm right on the shore of Lake Michigan myself here, and I can almost see you right across the lake. That's awesome.
Hey man, I'm gonna let you take it away today, man. Bring the goods, and we got the new name of the show, man.
All right, thanks, Pete. Show some love for Pete. Happy anniversary. Have a great rest of the vacation. We are thankful for you, and I'm thankful for everybody who's here, who's interested in becoming a better communicator, because like many of you, for years, I had a message inside of me that I knew could change the world. I knew it could impact people. I knew it could create revenue for me and my family, but more importantly, I knew it could improve the lives of others. But I wasn't communicating it in a way that was getting people to change. I wasn't communicating it in a way that was getting people to take action. And it wasn't until I learned how to communicate, not in a way that entertains, not in a way that makes people cry, how I learned to communicate in a way that changes lives, that gets people to take action. You know, we have a fancy word for that. We call it conversion. What % of the people who listen to you actually take the next step that you recommend for them? The word for that is conversion, but I think it's what creates impact. I think it's what creates revenue. I know it's what creates life change. And I know it's what unleashes the power inside of you to improve the lives of others and help you achieve your purpose. And so I am Pat Quinn. I'm excited to be here today because this one skill of knowing how to communicate to get people to take action, knowing how to communicate to get impact on other people's lives, is the one that is going to launch you, launch your business, launch your impact, launch your nonprofit, launch anything you are trying to do. Now, we call communicating like this your signature talk. And your signature talk is the one way that you explain to other people what you do and how you do it. And if we do our jobs correctly today, your signature talk will be the greatest marketing tool that your business has. When you have this one tool in your toolbox, whether you have 5 minutes to communicate to someone or 45 minutes, whether you are communicating to one person or 1,000 people, whether you are online, on stage, or across the table from someone on Starbucks, this is the way that you communicate. And here's the funny thing. A lot of people start in the wrong spot. A lot of people start with the stuff that they know that other people don't know. They start with the knowledge that they have that other people don't have. Like, I know stuff that you don't know. I want to communicate to you about this. And that is not the right place to start. Some people start with their offer. Here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to sign up for this. Or here's what I want you to do. I want you to buy this. They start right there. And that is not the right place to start. And some people start with their most emotional story. They make them cry or they make them laugh, and that is not the right place to start either. Most people start in the wrong spot. And so I want to share with you today the signature talk designed in a very special way. We call it the Story Braid Framework. The Story Braid Framework has 4 parts, and those 4 parts are heart, head, hands, and heart. The order matters. Heart, head, hands, and heart. And I just want to spend some time today with you going through each of these 4 parts. And I'm going to share with you a strategy in each of these 4 areas that I haven't shared very often before. And so if you've heard of the Story Braid Framework before, and you know heart, head, hands, heart, stick around, because I want to share with you one thing that you can do in each of these 4 parts that's going to supercharge every one of your communications. Now, the 4-part Story Braid Framework starts not with your content and not with your offer. It starts with an opening heart story. It starts with you sharing your heart. And the purpose of this opening heart story is to connect with the audience. The purpose is to connect. Listen to that closely, because there are a lot of people who use the opening of their presentation to separate themselves from their audience. Have you ever heard a speaker stand up and say, I've done this faster than anyone else in the world. I've done this bigger than anyone else in the world. I am the only person in the world who has ever done. They're using the opening of their presentation to separate themselves, to create distance between themselves and the audience. And that is why they are converting. That is why they are not having impact. That's why they're converting at a terrible rate. It's why they're not having the impact that they could be having. They're not creating the revenue that they could be having. Instead, I want you to use your opening story to connect. If you're wondering, what story should I tell at the start of a presentation? Here are some rules. Number 1, it should be a personal story. Don't tell a client story. You're not trying to connect them with your clients. You're trying to connect them with you. Number 2, it should be a story that you share in common with the audience, not different from the audience. I was coaching a speaker the other day, Rob, and Rob had an experience when he was younger that he got in a car accident and he almost had to have his leg amputated. And he was starting his presentation with that story. And I asked him, what % of your audience got in an accident and almost had to have their leg amputated? And he said, well, not very many, probably none. And I said, that is why that is a terrible story for you to start with, because you're not connecting with anybody. Now, some of you right now have 2 stories and you don't know which story to tell. Let me help you choose. The right story to start with is the story that the highest number of people in your audience would nod their heads and say, that same thing happened to me. Whichever story would get the more number of people, the higher number of people to say, I know exactly what you're talking about. That same thing happened to me. That's the right story to start with. So I'm thinking about 2 stories to start with today. Let's see. One time I spoke in an arena in Memphis, Tennessee called the Pyramid. I don't know if you've ever seen the Pyramid. It looks like a pyramid. And it's a big arena. It's a basketball arena. It probably holds 12,000 people. And I spoke that day to 12,000 people. I could tell that story. There was this other day that I spoke. And on this day, I spoke in front of, well, the ballroom held 200 people, but only about 6 people showed up and they couldn't make the room any smaller. So I spoke in a room with 6 people and there were 200 people there and they all folded their arms across their chest and had mean looks on their face. And I felt terrible about myself all day. I'm just glad I spoke before lunch, because 3 of the people didn't come back after lunch. So my buddy Ron had to do the whole afternoon with only 3 people in the room. That was even harder. Which of these 2 stories should I start with? And I'm thinking, if I start with the story about speaking to 12,000 people in a big arena, how many people who are hearing me today have had that experience? And I'm thinking probably nobody, maybe 1 or 2 of you. But the second experience, the experience of being in a room that's not quite as crowded as I hoped it would be, with an audience that isn't quite as excited as I hoped they would be, and I started to have a little voice in my head that said, maybe you're not as good as you should be, or could be, or somebody else would be. That's the story. That's the story, because every single one of you has had a day where there's a voice in your head with somebody saying, you're not quite as good as you think you are, and maybe you don't deserve to be on this stage. Your story isn't enough. Like, we all have that voice. So why don't I start with that story? Because every single one of you have had that experience. And so the best story to start with is easy to choose. Look at the stories of your life and ask yourself which one would get the maximum number of people to say that same thing happened to me. Now, here's something I want you to do right after that story. And this one, I don't talk about this a lot, but I'm going to tell you about this right now, because it is masterful when you do this right after your story. Finish your opening story, and before you get into your content, because we're going to go from heart to head, from opening heart story into your head content. But in between, what's the bridge? How do I get from my story to my content? The best way to get from your story to your content is an I believe statement. One sentence that tells the audience what you believe. So I finished this story about speaking to a room that wasn't as crowded as I thought it would be, not as excited as I thought it would be. And I have a voice in my head that says, you're not as good as you think you are, and your story isn't enough. And I had to overcome all of that to speak to that audience and change lives that day. I finished that story, and now I just look right into the camera, or if I'm on stage, I stand front and center and tell them what I believe. I believe that your story is enough, and I believe that your story will change lives. And so today, I'm going to show you the 4-part story braid framework that will help you use your story to change lives. See how the I believe statement became the bridge from my opening story into my content. You need something to get you out of the story into your content, and one sentence that says what you believe will do that. If you're with us on Zoom, I'd love for you to type into the chat what your I believe statement is. I believe your signature talk is the greatest marketing tool that you have. You've probably heard Pete Vargas say his. I believe stages are the fastest way to grow your business. What do you believe? Because the place to put that in your talk is right after your opening story and right before your content. That's how you get from the head to the heart. Oh, Pat, I love yours. I believe there is life after losing your spouse. And then you can go right into, see how that leads into your content? And so today, I'd like to teach you the steps that you can take. Maribel says, I believe you can do anything if you focus on it. And so today, I'm going to show you how you can accomplish anything. Donna says, I believe healthcare professionals can self-care. Then you can go in and say, and so today I'm going to teach you what the most important self-care things are to help you stay healthy as a health professional. So your I believe statement actually bridges right into your content, which is the second part of the 4-part story braid framework, the head section, which is your content. Now, I'm just going to be straight with you because we are backstage with PV3. And at backstage, we don't hide things from you. If you're doing something wrong, I'm going to tell you what you're doing wrong, and I'm going to tell you right now what you're doing wrong. Most people teach too much. Most people get to this part of their presentation and they teach way too much. They believe, maybe you believe, that the person who teaches the most gets the sale. They believe that the person who teaches the most will be the most impressive and get the person to work with them. And nothing could be further from the truth. The person who teaches the most leaves their audience scared, overwhelmed, and confused. Do people who are scared, overwhelmed, and confused make decisions? No. Do people who are scared, overwhelmed, and confused, do they move forward? No. They freeze. And so I want you to teach less, because when you teach less, you help more. When you teach less, you allow people to feel empowered, not overwhelmed. You allow people to move forward, not freeze. Signs that you teach too much. Sign number 1, you are rushed. The entire time that you're teaching, you are rushed. You can't even take a breath because you have to get through it all. Sign number 2, you actually apologize early in your presentation. I'm sorry, this is a lot of information, but I'm just going to go through it all. Like, if you're apologizing early in your presentation that you're teaching too much, why don't you just change it? Why are you apologizing? Just change it. Sign number 3, you have more than 40 slides. If you have more than 40 slides, trust me, you are teaching too much. You are teaching way too much. You don't need more than 40 slides. And so we don't want you to teach too much. We want you to help more by teaching less. And so we don't want you to just talk about the problem, because that doesn't help anybody. We don't want you to just tease that you can help them. Oh, I can help you. Oh, I could help you so much. It would only take a few minutes. You know, if you pay me, I will help you. But it would be so easy. If you would just work with me, I could help you. I could help you so much. Oh, I would just love to help you. Just pay me. Like, there's so many people out there who are saying, trust me, I can help you. Trust me, I can help you. Trust me, I can help you. You know the fastest way to get someone to trust that you can help them? Help them. Actually give them good stuff. Actually give them your best stuff. And people come to me and they say, well, Pat, if I give away my best stuff, why would they work with me? Well, my question is just the opposite. If in the time that you had in front of them, you didn't help them, why would they work with you? I believe that when you give someone your best stuff, they'll pay you to do it again. They'll pay you to do it slower. They'll pay you to do it one-on-one. They'll pay you to do it with their friends. They'll pay you to solve other problems. They'll pay you to do it customized just for them. They'll pay you to do it in a group. They'll pay you to do it in person. They'll pay you to do it online. I just know that if you help people in the time that you have in front of them, that they will come back to you again and again and again because you have so much trust. And so the content or head section of your presentation should be broken into sections. I like 3 or 4 sections. Why 3 or 4 sections? Well, that's what people can remember. That's why phone numbers are broken up into 3 digits and 4 digits, because that's what people can remember. And remember this, I don't talk about this one a lot, but for those of you who've heard about the StoryBraid framework before, I promised you a brand new nugget in each one of these. When you're teaching people something new, when you're teaching people something that will change their lives, frame it as small change. Don't frame it as big change. Remember this, most people don't like change. Most people do not like change. And so if you're teaching people something new, let's say I have a brand new piece of software, and I'm trying to introduce this new piece of software into a company. You know what words I should not say? This will change everything. Oh, what a terrible thing to say. It's just a terrible thing to say because people don't like change. So when you're teaching people something new, here's what you should do. You should start by talking about the things that won't change. So let's say I have this brand new piece of software and I'm teaching people about it. What I should start by saying is, now when you use this new software, here are some things that won't change. You will still be in complete control of your data. The way that you make decisions is the same way that you're making decisions now. All communication that goes out through this software, you still get to write, you still get to approve, and you still get to say when it gets sent. But here's what will change. Your life will be easier, your work will be less, your revenue will be more, and your profits will grow. I didn't start with the big change. I started with, here are some things that won't change. Let's say we wanted to get people to radically change what they were eating. You don't start by saying, we're going to change everything that you're eating. Nope, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to start by talking about what won't change. You are still in control of when you eat. You are still in control of how much you eat. And you are still in control of who you eat with. Now, we are going to change some small substitutions in what you're eating, but you still control when you eat, where you eat, how much you eat, and who you eat with. See what I did there? I started it with what doesn't change, so the change seems smaller. The smaller the change, the more people who will adopt it. Even if the outcome of that change is radical, make the change seem smaller. So we're going to teach 3 or 4 sections, minimize the size of the change that we're suggesting, and we're going to teach less, but give them our very best stuff. And if you haven't heard me say it before, the content section is a great time to refer to yourself by your first name during your presentation. So I tell people to give away their best stuff. And people come to me and say, well, Pat, if I give away my best stuff, why would they buy from me? See what I did there? I referred to myself by my first name in my presentation. Did you know that one of the biggest barriers to other people working with you, to other people moving forward with you, to other people contacting you after your presentation is what would they call you? It seems strange, but that is one of the biggest barriers. And you can overcome that barrier simply by referring to yourself by your first name during your presentation. And people say, well, Pat, does that really work? See what I did there? Yes, it really works. And you can do it 1 or 2 times during the content section of your presentation. The other great place to refer to yourself by your name, by the way, is your I believe statement. Instead of saying, I believe that you have a story that can change the world, I could say, I'm Pat Quinn, and I believe that you have a story that can change the world if you learn the 4-part story brain framework. All right, so we got the head. That's our opening heart story that connects with the audience. We have we have the heart. That's the opening heart that connects with the audience, and that's the first part. Then the head, which is the content, where we're going to teach less but really help the audience. So the last 2 parts are hands and heart, and this is our offer. The hands is the traditional call to action or a tactical offer. That's where you tell the audience specifically what you want them to do next. Now, that might be a free offer, like sign up for my free newsletter, join my Facebook group, schedule a free call, a free appointment, a free assessment, or download a free resource. Or that might be a paid offer. Buy my course, buy my coaching, buy my product, buy my service, sign a contract. You get to decide what the next step is. But here's what I want you to know. Great presentations only have one call to action. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I want to give something away for free and I want to sell something. Terrible idea. Anytime you give the audience options, they freeze. Like a terrible presentation gets to the end and says, now you can buy my $10,000 thing, or you can buy my $1,000 thing, or you can download something for free. That's a terrible call to action. And very few people will do any of those because everybody's going to be confused. What's the difference between the $10,000 thing and the $1,000 thing? Why would I buy anything if I can download something for free? And so what we want you to do is give one call to action. A great presentation is like a sidewalk. It leads the audience down a path to a single point of decision. Do you want this or not? Now, after they say yes or no to that, you can offer them something else. But in the beginning, just give them one call to action. This is true on social media. This is true on your webinars. This is true on podcasts. This is true in conversation with people. Give them one call to action. And now let me teach you something I don't think I've ever taught before in any public setting. It's something called balanced accounting. Balanced accounting takes advantage of the fact that most people are bad at math, and most people just want the balance to be balanced. Like they just want things to be even. It's the easiest way to think about things. Let me give you an example of balanced accounting. You spend lots of time on other people. Why don't you spend some time on yourself? If I was running a spa or a massage service or a counseling or a therapy, I would totally say that. You spend lots of money on things that you need. Why don't you spend money on something that's just for fun? Why don't we and then go like this when you do that? This is called balanced accounting because in people's brains, they want things to be balanced. You spend lots of money on things that you need. Why don't you spend some money on something that's just fun? If I were selling vacations, cruises, sports cars, luxury watches, I'd do that all day. You spend lots of money trying to grow your team. Why don't you spend some money trying to grow yourself? You spend lots of money trying to get customers. Why don't you spend some money getting better at communicating to those customers? You can do this 100 different ways, but it's balanced accounting. And in your offer, if you make a balanced accounting statement, you spend a lot on this. Isn't it time that we spent on this? And then just go like this. And people will be like, yeah, I should spend some more money on that. You are absolutely right. And so that's called balanced accounting. If you add it to your offer, you're going to see a higher conversion rate, even a free offer. Like you spend, like, let's say I had a newsletter and I want people to subscribe to my newsletter. You spend all the time reading, all day reading bad news and bad reports and bad written emails. Why don't you spend some time reading a newsletter that would actually change your life? There you go. Now everybody's going to sign up for my newsletter because you want to spend some time reading the good stuff too. And you just go like this and everybody wants it. That's balanced accounting. You should always have that as part of your offer. Now, that's the hands section, which is your traditional call to action. And about 80% of speakers end their presentation with their call to action, which is a mistake because over 50% of your audience are not tactical decision makers. Over 50% of your audience are emotional decision makers. So we always want to follow our tactical call to action with an emotional call to action. Sometimes this is a story. Sometimes this is something that is just inspiring. Like it worked for me, it can work for you. And I know you can do this. Sometimes it's a technique, and I'm going to teach this technique. We don't teach it very often, but here it is. It's called a repeated stem. A repeated stem is to start 3 consecutive sentences with the same stem. The most famous example of a repeated stem in history is Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, where he started 3 consecutive sentences with the words "I have a dream." So all you have to do is come up with a 3, 4, or 5-word phrase that sums up what you believe. So I told you earlier, I believe that your story is enough. So a great way for me to end my presentation would be to start 3 consecutive sentences with that. Your story is enough. So choose a story that connects with people. Your story is enough. And if you tell it, you will change lives. Your story is enough. So get out there and change the world with your story. That's a repeated stem. 3 consecutive sentences that start with the same phrase. It's a phrase that you believe. Oftentimes, it's the back end of your "I believe" statement from the beginning of the presentation. And people say, wow, that whole thing fit together. At the start of the presentation, he told us a story and said, "I believe your story is enough." At the end of his presentation, he finished by saying, "Your story is enough." The whole thing goes together and they can't believe it. But that's because you know the 4-part story braid framework. That's because you know that you always follow a tactical call to action with an emotional call to action. So the next time you have an opportunity to communicate, whether that's for 5 minutes at a cocktail party or a networking event, whether it's 45 minutes on a webinar, a podcast, or a keynote presentation at a big event, don't just start with content or an offer. Use the 4-part story braid framework, and you will see more customers, more revenue, more leads, more impact. You'll be changing lives. If you want to create your own signature talk using the 4-part story braid framework, go to storybraid.com. That's STORYBRAID. And there are free resources there to help you put your signature talk together using the story braid framework. Story braid, STORYBRAID.com, storybraid.com, and it will help you put your signature talk together using the 4-part story braid framework. And I'm so excited to share with you today because I know there are so many places where this will help you. This will help you in one-on-one conversations. This will help you with social media posts. This will help you every single time that you have the opportunity to stand up and speak, or have a newsletter, have a website, have a social media account. Anytime you're communicating, you should be doing these 4 things. You got 3 minutes, do these 4 things. You got 30 minutes, do these 4 things. You're in front of one person, do these 4 things. You're in front of a lot of people, do these 4 things. And so I want you to know that you have a story that can change the world. Your story is enough. I think sometimes If you're like me, you look at some people, you look at Pete, you look at other people whose names we all know, and you're like, oh, I don't have a story like that. You don't want a story like that. You want a story like yours, because your story is enough. You don't need somebody else's story. You don't need to make up a story. Some people come to me and they're like, oh, I want to talk like this person. I want to talk just like this person. I'm like, you don't want to talk like that person. We already got one of those. We need somebody to talk like you. Your story will be attractive to the right people at the right time to change lives. And if you communicate using the 4-part story braid framework, you're going to take people who love your story. And we all know this. There's people who we love their story. We say, I love your story. And then you're like, well, did you sign up? Did you do business with them? Did you hire them? Did you buy from them? Well, no, I just love their story. That's because they did not have the 4-part story braid framework. And so if you want to take your story and turn it into a customer generating tool, if you want to take your story and turn it into a revenue generating tool, whether you want to grow a nonprofit, grow a business, grow your cause, grow your social media, grow your newsletter, grow anything, go to storybraid.com and get the free resources that'll help you turn your story into a signature talk using the 4-part story braid framework: heart, head, hands, and heart. Awesome. I want to thank everybody who was here today. I want to thank Pete Vargas, who showed up on vacation on the shore of Lake Michigan to welcome us here today and to introduce me. And I want to thank everybody who's been part. It's not anonymous anymore. It's not the mystery show anymore. It's Backstage with Pete Vargas III. It'll be back next week with Pete Vargas III. And we can't wait to see you then. So have a great week, everybody. And remember to go to storybraid.com to get some great free resources on how to put together your signature talk using the 4-part story braid framework. I'm Pat Quinn. Thanks for being part of Backstage with Pete Vargas III.